There has been quite a progress over the last 10 to 15 years in terms of science and also in establishing the variations across the region. And I would like to invite Pema Gyamtsho later to comment on that and discuss that in the context of the vision for the future in terms of leadership of ICIMOD in the region. But before we give Pema the opportunity to elaborate on the vision for the road ahead, we would like to invite the audience to pose questions to the speakers. So please, over there.
My question is that, two-part question. One question is that you said that smaller geolabs are more riskier. And can you explain why that is the case? And my second question is that we believe that our solution of AGM can prevent the geolabs to burst. That can preserve the geolabs. Would there be any way to get permission to do the testing for us to do that? Thank you.
Thank you. I think the first question, see, most of the smaller are more sensitive to climate change because the smaller lakes which are formed, the size of the lakes, their geographical location, you know how fragile and how terrains are concerned, and the smaller lakes are located in such a way, and if it increases by a little bit more, the impact is very much for its outburst. So this is one, because they are in such a location, so more smaller. If you have a bigger spaces, then those lakes have wider, and they are. So there is gravitational impact on smaller lakes are more because of their location where they are placed. That is one observation. But the second one, I think it is possible. We have a joint secretary from Nepal here, and for research studies, definitely such studies will be possible with a proper permission and follow-up. And I would suggest, I think it is always good to link with ICIMOD. ICIMOD has a mandate, and ICIMOD actually then can go to the concerned governments to allow for such experimentation.
Thank you very much, and I will follow up with Pema Gyamtsho for how we can collaborate and how can ICIMOD lead this research scale studies.
Thank you very much. So Sakaguchi.
Thank you very much. Very exciting talk, both of you. I have just one simple question to Mr. Sharma. In the future projection diagram, you showed the really positive, prosperous curve you showed. But to achieve that prosperous scenario, what kind of input or what kind of investment are you expecting to achieve that scenario? And also, I hope that scenario is prosperous not only for 8 countries, but also for all over the world. And if it is, I can think of supporting in some way. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think this is very important. So when this scenario was being developed, it was a group of professional scientists, and they looked into these 3 possibilities. And the prosperous possibility is the regional, key is regional cooperation. All these 8 countries have to have a political will for a technical work and technical cooperation. And it also talks about cooperation at all levels. So when I say all levels, farmer to farmer, community to community, business to business, private sector to private sector, and then government to government. So it's all level. Prosperity can happen only if we cooperate at all levels. So let us not just think of government. That will follow if farmer to farmer, community community, business starts doing. So that is also prosperity. Now, when I'm talking about investment, it has to be a bottom-up approach where local and the national interest in terms of investment, resource mobilization within the region, because we have big countries like India, China, and some of the countries, other countries are also coming up. Resource mobilization within the region, and also resource support from outside. Because what is happening in the third pole, Hindu Kush Himalayan region, is not because of people living there. It is somewhere, I think climate change is happening, and there is, in most of the region, if you go, they are carbon neutral, but the impact is happening there. So in that context, there is a global responsibility to actually bring investment in this region. And investment, when we say, then it has to be, if we has to be prosperous, it has to be economically linked. So we have to think of sustainable tourism, we have to think of very good hydropower where environmental impacts are minimized. So investment can, but it has to be bottom up. Something which is required at that local level has to be, but not something from outside. So we have to work on that. And that is what I think the task force and the governments are working. I am very, very positive, and I feel that prosperous HKH in the process of formation, and they are on the right path.
Thank you very much. So if I may invite Dr. Pema Gyamtsho to enter into the dialogue, and perhaps then in particular to discuss the vision for the future for ICIMOD as a knowledge center in the Hindu Kush Himalaya, and comment on the need for a comprehensive approach linking the study of ice and glaciology, which has advanced considerably in recent years, with study of mountain hydrology and the consequences for the river deltas downstream. So how do you see the role of ICIMOD evolving in the years ahead, building on the work that has been done in the last 10 to 15 years?
Thank you very much. Again, thank you both the speakers for those very interesting presentations. I think Professor Bornstein mentioned about the link between cryosphere work in the third pole and in the Arctic Circle. I think definitely there is a need to build that collaboration, because recently in Almaty in Kyrgyzstan, there was this International Cryosphere Society conference that ICIMOD organized together with UNESCO. So I think we need to link this up, the more collaboration between scientists and people working on cryosphere and so on. Now, what has come out from both the presentation is that is proven beyond any doubt, if you have any doubt at all, that the glaciers are melting, and melting very fast. And I think that is a fact that we cannot deny. And the consequences are there for all to see, and the short-term impact or the medium-term opportunities, if you like, would be there would be an increase in water discharge or water flow. But in the long run, there would be, a huge decrease. And I think we have to be prepared to seize the opportunities that the short-term, the medium-term impact would provide in terms of more availability of water, and of course the consequences having no water in the long run. So these are very, very clear. One thing that strikes me is also now we talk about glaciers and ice that we see much more than the hidden ice, the invisible ice that lies frozen below the ground, which we don't see, the permafrost. I think more and more we need to give attention to permafrost, because I think in the Himalayas, the melting, the thawing of permafrost is going to have far bigger consequences, because we don't see them melting, but they're melting very fast, and that leads to slope failures. And then that precipitates the risk from glacial outburst and other events. So I think this permafrost is one area that we would really like to learn from the science, the advances in the progress made in studies done elsewhere, to also help us to do more studies on permafrost and so on. The biggest difference between the Arctic Circle and the third pole, I think by now we would have all seen, is that the third pole is heavily populated. Whereas maybe in the Arctic and the Antarctica, the population is relatively less, and the impact on human lives and properties, the economy is probably not as great as in the third pole region. Now, what has come out is also very clear that regional cooperation is the key, and only through regional cooperation we can actually address many of the challenges that we are facing. And Professor, I think Sagoguchi, okay, sorry. Question on investment. Yes, investment definitely needed in the region. Investments for protecting the people, safety and security, being prepared for more and more disasters, not only from floods, but also from extreme weather conditions and so on. So we need to build the safety and security of the communities living in the mountains that Dr. Sharma has also shown. With water, disappearing, access, to water becoming more and more problematic, people are migrating out. We need investment to make sure that there is a way of bringing back some of these drying water sources. ICIMOD already has a program in rehabilitating, rejuvenating drying springs. So that is one area that we would, just an example of investment that would be required if we need to keep. The second is to realize the economic opportunities. I think hydropower is one, tourism is another, and the region is very rich in biodiversity, so seizing those opportunities, and then of course capacity building and technology transfer, all those are required. I'll stop here at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There was a question from the audience waiting, so yes, please.
Mark Lantain, University of Tromsø. I just wanted to follow up on some of the other comments regarding the kind of overlap between the politics and the environment in this case, because many members of the Third Pole organizations are currently dealing with both political and strategic problems. How do you see these initiatives, these areas of cooperation, potentially transcending it or having to deal with these political issues? Thanks.
Right. That is a very, very serious question, but one that we have to deal with. You see, the political situation is not an excuse not to cooperate and not to do anything. I think we have to keep on trying. Remember yesterday, I think it's Ambassador, of Iceland talking about, the need for alternative track approaches, not just government to government, but people to people, organization to organization. I think building trust and confidence at every level, that is the key. And in the Third Pole region, we are doing that. We are not letting politics affect the course of science cooperation. So we have regular meetings with, bringing Chinese scientists, Pakistani scientists, Indian scientists, and scientists from our other member countries to discuss about these common issues. Now one clear example, one recent event is a conference on air pollution, transboundary air pollution control. And we were able to bring together with the World Bank representatives, of the disaster risk management authorities from all the countries to discuss about how we can improve the quality of air. In the whole of South Asia, in the Indo-Gangetic plain, the quality of air is 2 to 3 times above safety levels prescribed by WHO. So that is a very serious problem. And if you wait for politics to improve, I think the consequences, of waiting would be, the cost of waiting would be too high. So we need to keep trying. We need to, to the extent possible, try to steer away from politically sensitive, controversial issues and deal with those that are more, favorable for bringing consensus and so on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If there is no question from the audience at the moment, I may perhaps ask a follow-up question on this. The picture that is emerging from scientific research in recent years, establishing that the major challenges in the coming years are disasters and risks, so glacial outbursts, floods, landslides, and other risks of various kinds. And the picture is emerging that these risks are kind of unevenly distributed, so to speak. So, for example, it's been established that the risk of glacial outburst floods is most serious in eastern Nepal and the Bhutan region and so on. The extent of melting is most serious in the Karakoram and the western Hindu Kush and so on. And what strategy, for example, does ICIMOD have and other bodies in the region to communicate information about this specific nature of the climate challenge in different parts of the region? Have you entered into work that specifically designs an outreach strategy and how to communicate information of this specific nature to the relevant communities and policymakers in those particular areas? Or is this simply a very general picture that is published in a report like the Hindu Kush assessment report?
So let me give you one example. See, this report has been published. But while the report was being developed, at that time only we started engaging with the governments of all 8 countries. And that is the result why SK's call to action was owned, and it came simultaneously after 1 year of the publication of the report. Because they were engaged right into the, when the report was being formulated and we shared. One of the consequences, there are many, but I can give example of India. So when this was formed, member of the Niti Aayog, which is a planning commission in India, with a minister rank, he came with his team to ICIMOD 2 times already. And following that, 5 reports for India-specific reports were prepared. And ICIMOD helped them to prepare. So it went to the countries, and then it went to the states. And now they have a Indian Himalaya Region Council, chaired by the member, and then all chief secretaries of these states. So what you are saying, dissemination part. So definitely it is rolling over by having a mechanism of ICIMOD working with the countries to go deeper. So the knowledge goes to the policymakers as well as it goes to all other stakeholders who work with us. So just giving you example of India, but same thing is happening in almost all the countries because the report is taken forward.
Right.